Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Great to have you with us for another internship final presentation here at El Terreno. My name is Joshua, the founder and director here, and we're very excited to have Carla's final presentation looking at myths and legends as well as a little bit of digital work as well. A really interesting project which kind of stretches across many different disciplines and areas. And we're really happy to share what Carla's done today in a very short period of time. So I'll pass over to you, Carla, to take it away.
Yes, so my name is Carla, and I'm from Sweden, and I joined, wait, let me share sorry. Sorry. Uh, so I, this is the agenda for my presentation, and I joined this internship with kind of an open mind. I didn't have any specific goals. I knew I was interested in the storytelling project, but I didn't know exactly what that would entail. And so, yeah, I was very open, but I did want to do something that felt meaningful, and just to help the community in any way I could. And I was inspired by the previous storytelling project, where they wrote a story about a famous legend, and basically the goal was to write about these legends to preserve and celebrate indigenous myths and legends, um, to pass these stories on to a younger generation to um, kind of what's the word for it? Yeah, like I said, preserve kind of ancestral knowledge. And then I was talked to Christian about making the same kind of story, or creating a story and putting that on the website. And I was very interested in doing that. So I started researching different myths and legends to kind of get a general idea of some of the indigenous legends from this region. And one of the legends that I read about was the huiña, among many others. And I used this one book that's on the screen. And then we got to meet some midwives during a trip to a health center, and we interviewed them about different legends. And there was one legend in particular that they seemed to have a lot of knowledge about. They had all heard kind of different versions of it, and that was the legend about Winya Giji. Yeah, and then that's sort of when I decided that that would be a good myth to write about. Um, and yeah, and I started writing and creating the website or the web page as well. Yeah. And so the story itself, like the goal that I had for the story, was for it to be informative, bringing awareness to the issue of gender-based violence in Ecuador, because the versions that were told of the story from the midwives were mostly centered on women and how women should act and how women should be. They also talked about how, even though there is a big issue of domestic violence, and that comes from the man, it's the woman's kind of job, to be a good wife and to cook and clean and do her tasks. And I just felt like it would be like, from what I understood, this story is passed down from grandparents to their grandchildren, and it's told based on their own kind of morals and opinions. So they're gonna kind of turn it into whatever they want to teach their grandchildren. Um, and so the message can change based on the storyteller. So I felt inclined to maybe offer a different perspective, where in this story it's actually about how a man should be and how like to not be inappropriate and to act well, I guess. So that was the point of my story. I wanted it to be informative, bring awareness for adults reading it. But then I also wanted it to be kind of a preventive measure for children. I don't think it's going to make, a huge difference, but I think just the way you talk about just having an open conversation about like what it means to be a good person. So yeah, and I also wanted to be in line with the kind of overall theme of the storytelling project, which is to preserve these myths and legends. So in the story, I also displayed the different versions of the story that was told to me because there are so many different versions. So I wanted to be faithful to those versions as well. Yeah. And we also did a workshop. I had the idea of including images on the website, and the images would be like children's drawings of the story. Um, and I really liked that idea, and we made it happen in the library. And so basically, Paulina read the story out loud for the children in Spanish, and then they got to do an activity where they pair like English words with Spanish words from the story. And then the last activity was the drawings that you can see on the picture here. So we not only got content for the web page, but we also were in line with the goal of the project of passing these stories down to the younger generation. And some of the challenges and concerns that I had were kind of balancing how to approach the topic. So in my mind, I had two kind of target audiences. So the story itself is written for children. It's a children's story, so I made sure not to be too explicit and to kind of keep it not light, but just, not be too explicit about the theme of the story, while young, like adults would be able to maybe read between the lines. And then I also wanted adults to be able to read more about the story and about the message behind it. And there were also some difficulties with the web page itself, creating the web page, just small things, but it makes a big difference if you spend a lot of time focusing on that instead of focusing on maybe writing the story or whatever. And I think a lot of that comes down to the time limit. Had I had more time, then I would have obviously had more time to deal with those problems. And then as for personal reflections, so like I said, I think I managed the time pretty well, but I think you can always do better and have like bear in mind that certain things might take longer than you expect. Another thing was the distribution. So as far as the distribution, we just have the website, but had I had more time, I could have maybe put up QR codes in schools, library. We could have done more workshops, maybe in a school, stuff like that. So, and that's also because of the time limit that I wasn't able to do that. And then, yeah, I've learned a lot about the topic itself. I feel like I've gained a lot of knowledge just from doing this project, and just learning from the working process. And yeah, thank you. Are there any questions?
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Carla. if you can stop sharing your screen, and then yeah, we would love to have people's input. That'd be really great to hear any questions. I've got a few, so we can start there. Um, would you be willing to read us your story?
To read the story?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, maybe. I don't know.
Great.
Oh, I have to read the story. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Yes. Let me just find it and then I can read it out loud. Wait. I believe this is the final version. Do I just start reading it? Oh. Okay. So, the story of huiña. There is a house by the Chambo River, a house with a sunken roof, shattered windows, and roots creeping up its filthy walls. A man named Juan lives in this house. When girls walk by him, he watches them with dark eyes and a sly smile. He calls after them, making them hurry on their way. Sometimes he approaches them, after which they shake with fear. In the nearby village, parents warn their daughters not to walk by the river alone. They tell their daughters to be wary of the dangerous man who resides there. On this particular night, a chilly fog lies heavy over the village and the river. Juan is on his way home from the dive bar. He uses an old lantern to light the dark path. Suddenly, a young girl emerges from the fog. He observes her as she shyly passes him by, her eyes fixed on the ground in front of her. A long braid runs down her back. Juan watches as the braid sways back and forth and decides to follow her. The girl, noticing his nearing steps, starts running. Juan takes off after her, but although he is fast, the girl is faster. As he is struggling behind her, the lantern slips from his hand, falls to the ground, and goes out. A moment later, the girl is swallowed by the fog. Accepting his defeat, Juan begins his walk back home, this time without a light to guide him. He walks slowly, careful not to trip in the darkness. After a while, a baby's cry pierces through the dark. He follows the sound of desperate weeping. The sound gets closer and closer. He walks slowly until the sound seems to be right by his feet. Juan leans down and picks up a small bundle, which stops screaming the second it reaches his bosom. He looks down at the baby in his arms, which is wrapped up in a blanket covering its face. He moves the blanket, but instead of revealing a baby's sweet face, he is met with the face of a horrible creature. Before he has time to react, the creature bites his finger. Shocked, he drops it to the ground. Why is all he can let out, his voice shaking. You are a bad man, says the creature before him, and for that I am going to kill you. Upon hearing these words, Juan faints. In the morning, Juan wakes up with his body against the cold, damp grass. The fog has cleared and he spots his house ahead. The memory of the creature from the night before comes back to him. It must have been huiña. It must have been, Juan mumbles to himself. He had forgotten about huiña. He had forgotten the story that his grandparents used to tell his sisters. They used to warn his sisters of a spirit who punishes people that behave badly. Huiña can appear at midday or at midnight. It can take the form of a baby or mimic its crying. It can bring bad energy upon its targets and make them sick, so sick that they might die. Huiña teaches people to be good, and it makes those who do not learn the lesson disappear. When Juan stands up to walk back home, he feels lighter than he has in a long time. He walks back home with an ease in his step, an ease that he has not felt since he was a young boy. This feeling lingers in his body for days, months, years. Now the house by the Chambo River is still a bit unkept, sure, but the man who lives there is a good man. He does not bother anyone. When girls walk past him, he might give them a polite smile, but he would never dare to frighten them. Juan will never forget the story of huiña again.
Well done.
Thank you.
But the first time you told the story out loud, or have you told other people?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah. Congratulations. You're a storyteller.
Yes.
I'm really impressed by that. What really impresses me is the vocabulary that you've used. given that obviously English isn't your first language.
Yeah.
You've used really descriptive language that like really brings the images to mind, and it's really clear to hear what the moral of the story is. And also, I think the length of the story as well is great. It's long enough to be able to tell people it's got a flow that kind of carries things along. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Have you had any feedback from anybody else on your story?
Yes, I got feedback from a woman named Camilla. I can't remember her last name. But it was very nice because I had some like specific questions about wanting the story to be a little bit more kind of culturally relevant. So for example, it was the dive bar. I asked a question about that because originally it was like tavern or something, which just sounds maybe not very culturally relevant. So yeah, and then I sent the text to my mom and just let her read it. So apart from those two people, I have not had any other feedback. Yeah.
Okay, great. We have Juan on the call. Juan, if you're able to, it'd be great if you have any comments or questions as you've been helping Carla with her project.
Hello.
Hello. Well, I don't have any comments. I appreciate all the exposition, and it's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, I
How
also want
was
to say sorry, I just want to say thank you to, because he has helped me a lot, especially this week and the past few days, because there were so many issues with the web page. In the end, Juan had to add the text himself. So it was very nice to just have someone help me with that. So yeah, thank you very much.
great? And can you share more about that, your decision to put it on the website, and what your hopes are for putting it there?
Yeah, I think there are like very good reasons to put it on the website. I think for one, just the website in itself, it's good to have it's kind of like marketing, you know. But just nice to be able to, for anyone who's like interested in El Terreno, it's nice to be able to look at the different projects, and there are so many different things you can do. So I think it's nice that you're able to read not just my story, but also the other story from Ava and Elisa. And then also my hope is that both adults and children can access the story. Probably more adults because it's, a web page and they have more kind of access to it. But I think it's also I hope that it can be maybe a little bit inspiring to maybe tell this version of the story to children and, so yeah.
Yeah, I think, as you say, it's going to be a valuable resource, both for us at El Terreno, as we're looking to expand the website and include more information on the projects. And as you say, someone else who comes along and wants to continue with this has it as a starting point to go from, whether they want to work on storytelling or on education, or, obviously the theme of the topic is on gender. So I think it's really valuable in many ways.
Yeah.
What would you say is, for future participants, interns coming, how could this project be taken forward?
Well, I really like the structure of this project. I really like that I was able to I got a lot of inspiration from Ava and Elisa, so the previous storytelling project. And just I got a lot of inspiration about how they did their research, their writing process. So I think it's a very nice thing to kind of have this as to keep going with the indigenous myths and legends because there are so many. When I was doing the research, I had so many different like other alternatives that I could have gone with, There are some really nice. I talked to Camila, who I talked about before. We talked a lot about myths about the different mountains and how like modern retellings of these stories are about how to kind of about the environmental aspect and kind of caring for the environment. So I think some like a lot of these stories have very nice messages and they kind of serve a lot of different purposes. So I really like that idea of just continuing with this project.
Absolutely. Great. So yes, if anyone else is listening to this and thinking, what could I do on a storytelling project? There's loads more mountains here in the Andes to take inspiration from. So thank you for that. Does anyone else have any questions before we begin to wrap this up? Okay. If not, then Carla, can you just share how people can actually find the story if they'd like to come back to it?
Yes, so it will be on the El Terreno website under projects. And there you can see two of the storytelling projects. So there's one which is called The Story of huiña, which is the one that I wrote. And then The Hidden City of Chimborazo, which is the previous project.
Great. Fantastic. And also we'll put a link from this video directly to the story so people can watching this again can have a look.
Yes.
Okay, Carla, your internship is officially concluded. Congratulations. Well done on the hard work in a short space of time. I'm really pleased. It was really nice to hear you tell the story. So I hope that's not the last time and you're able to go home and share it with other people. You've done a really beautiful piece of work. And I know that the library were really happy that you were able to collaborate with them. And I think you've left an important foundation for other people to build on these same projects. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you to everybody for joining us today. Great to have you all here. And until next time. Hasta luego.